the basis from which some of the other analyses are done is called infrastructure response time. Infrastructure response time is actually defined as the time it takes for the system to perform the work that's submitted by an application. So it directly shows the system's infrastructure responsiveness. Many IT organizations with responsibilities for end-user application transaction monitoring often use an application performance management solution and other user-side service assurance technologies. So it's important to assure actual end-user performance, and these products are very popular and really useful, but typically they treat the infrastructure as a black box, meaning they don't provide insight into troubleshooting resource contention, infrastructure optimization, and they can't actually tell you whether the problem is at the infrastructure level. So one of the things that BalancePoint's infrastructure response time does is to quickly show if that poor end-user performance is due to infrastructure issues or not. If the infrastructure response time is poor, then the end-user's experience will likely be poor, but if it's good when the end-user's experience is poor, then the problem is more likely a non-infrastructure problem. And tracking infrastructure response time is a great way for IT infrastructure owners to prove it, that they're providing good infrastructure service. And they can use that as a base measurement for their service level agreements. There's a couple of examples of customers that I've spoken to where they get the call that says, oh, my application's running slow, and they use BalancePoint as a way to pinpoint whether or not it's in the infrastructure or not as their first thing that they do. Infrastructure response time is expressed as seconds per transaction, and a lower number indicates faster performance. Infrastructure response time values can be compared over time and across systems independent of the application-specific user transactions being performed. So this is really the perspective of application utilization that an IT infrastructure owner can use to optimize total performance and plan future capacities. In this example shown on the screen, the infrastructure response time shows a large recurring storage bottleneck. You can see that the performance problem shows up visually as color-coded areas of large response time. The transaction volume on the bottom in the green provides additional insight. You can see the peaks in transaction volumes correlate to the infrastructure response time degradation. If the transaction volumes are extremely low, then high infrastructure response time values may not be the cause for the problem. However, highly variable, large ramp-up, or sudden spikes in volume may indicate that research into application behavior and usage is needed for further troubleshooting the infrastructure. I wanted to cover a couple of different case studies in the presentation to give you a sense for the type of organizations and results that they've had that use BalancePoint. The first one is a troubleshooting example. SCI is a company in the Southwest. They have a pretty good size virtual infrastructure. They're running VMware on HP and IBM storage, and that's one additional thing that BalancePoint does that other tools don't do is, you can have a mix of storage, and we support all of the major vendors out there. When they did their initial physical to virtual migration, they migrated the storage as is and ran into some performance problems. After installing BalancePoint, they were able to view what was going on behind the scenes. Getting that view into storage is critical for them. helping them determine how to allocate and balance the drive systems and learn where there were overloads. It also provided insight into their non-virtualized systems and applications such as databases. And what they found out was what they thought was a slow database drive was actually a problem of running 4 processors on one drive. They also found that a slow backup was caused by doing indexing all at the same time. So that was a big win for them because they had been pretty perplexed at what was going on there. The second value that BalancePoint provides is optimizing performance. So we talked about infrastructure response time a few minutes ago. Another unique BalancePoint key performance indicator is performance index. And performance index is, well, IRT is actually fundamental to delivering performance index. So this is produced for each application and can be used to quickly optimize usage of a system by balancing capacity utilization with good performance. It's based on scoring the underlying infrastructure response time relative to the system's optimal point. We've tried to make it really easy by saying, manage your infrastructure to the optimal point of 100 and you'll be good to go. The optimal point represents the natural service level threshold of the system, taking into account all of the resources, components, and current contention from application workloads. So visually, if you look at the graph on the bottom, the optimal point occurs just beneath the knee of the curve. Loading a system beyond this optimal point will result in an exponential increase in infrastructure response time, which will give you poor performance. To optimize the infrastructure, BalancePoint or Akorri recommends that you maintain the PI numbers close to but below 100, by some capacity margin that you could negotiate with the business. For example, application owners might actually, want that little extra capacity headroom as risk assurance for unexpected peaks. As you guys know, a benefit of virtualization is that unexpected peaks can be serviced out of the unused portion of this shared resource pool. So in this example, as we add VMs, and this is a basic example, so they're all the same size, but you can see that the performance, or the, optimal point increases as the VMs are added and gets closer to the 100 mark. So in this example, if you have 4 VMs running at 100, you're at that optimal point, balancing both performance and efficiency, getting the most out of your infrastructure. If you throw one more on there, performance is going to decrease